Warren Buffett just issued a bizarre market crash warning, and it's not what you think. You're not going to believe this. Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, the calmest billionaire in every market storm, just sent out a warning. And not just any warning. A bizarre, cryptic, borderline unsettling message that has sent shockwaves across Wall Street. This isn't your usual stocks are overvalued kind of talk. No, this is different. Because for decades, Buffett has been the voice of reason. When everyone panicked, he bought. When fear gripped the markets, he calmly said, "Be greedy when others are fearful." But now the tables have turned. Because for the first time in a very long time, Buffett isn't buying. He's hoarding cash. And not just a little cash, he's sitting on over $168 billion in cash as of Berkshire Hathaway's latest report. Let that sink in for a second. $168 billion. That's more than the GDP of Ukraine, more than the market cap of Coca-Cola, and more than the combined net worth of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos if you subtract a couple private jets. But the real question isn't how much he's hoarding. It's why. Because here's the thing, Buffett doesn't hoard cash unless he sees something big coming. Something ugly. Something that smells like a financial apocalypse but looks, at first glance, like everything's fine. And if you've been paying attention, the signs are there. The S&P 500 is up over 20% in the past year. Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft are hitting all-time highs. Meme stocks like GameStop are making a comeback. And yet, behind the curtains, the financial system is creaking. Corporate bankruptcies in the U.S. are up 42% compared to this time last year. Credit card delinquencies have risen to levels not seen since 2009. Auto loan defaults are surging. And commercial real estate? It's basically the Titanic just hitting the iceberg, but everyone's still dancing to the music. Meanwhile, inflation hasn't really gone away. The latest CPI data shows consumer prices rising 3.5% despite all the Fed's efforts. Interest rates are at their highest in 2 decades, and still, the average American household is spending more than it earns. But let's zoom in on Buffett. Because he didn't issue his warning with sirens and flashing red lights. He did it the Buffett way, quietly, subtly, almost like he was whispering it to those smart enough to read between the lines. In his latest letter to shareholders, he dropped this bomb: there remain only a handful of companies in this country capable of truly moving the needle for Berkshire. Yet we find little that excites us. Translation? The market is so inflated, so overhyped, so saturated with speculative nonsense that even Buffett, the guy who once bought entire railroads, is saying, "I'm out." And if that doesn't make you nervous, it should. Because the last time Buffett hoarded this much cash was in 2007. You know what happened next? Lehman Brothers collapsed. Housing imploded. The Dow Jones lost more than 50% of its value. And the global economy spent the next decade recovering from a sucker punch it never saw coming. So when Buffett hoards, history tells us something's about to snap. Now let's be real for a second. Most people don't listen until it's too late. In 2008, they laughed at Michael Burry. In 2020, they laughed at people buying Bitcoin at $5,000. In 2023, they laughed at those who said AI was going to replace 20% of jobs. And in 2025, they're laughing again at the idea that the market might crash when the charts look great. When the headlines say soft landing. When the Fed says we've got this under control. But you know what Buffett is doing? He's not laughing. He's preparing. Because the smartest investors don't wait for the news to scream recession. They move before the storm hits. And let's talk numbers. The average American household is carrying over $7,000 in credit card debt with interest rates pushing 24% APR. That's criminal. And yet banks are still handing out credit like it's free popcorn. Student loans? Back on the books? Mortgage rates? Sitting at 7.2%, choking the housing market. And let's not even start on small businesses. Over 59% report that access to capital is harder than ever before. So where does that leave us? In a country that looks fine on the surface but underneath is cracked. And Warren knows it. That's why he isn't buying stocks. That's why he isn't chasing the hype. That's why he's quietly, methodically stacking cash like a doomsday prepper loading canned beans into a bunker. And he's not alone. Hedge funds are quietly rotating out of tech. Insiders are selling shares at the fastest pace since 2021. Gold is surging. Bitcoin is back over $70,000. And the smart money? It's not betting on growth, it's betting on volatility. Because even if the crash doesn't come tomorrow, the stage is set. All it takes is one trigger. A geopolitical shock. A bank collapse. A black swan. And suddenly, all that cash Buffett's been hoarding becomes a weapon. While everyone else is bleeding, he'll be buying. When the market tanks, he'll be the guy with the dry powder. Just like 2008. Just like 2020. Just like always. But what about you? Because here's the scary part. The average investor doesn't have $168 billion. Hell, most don't even have $10,000 saved. And when the market crashes, they'll be the ones caught in the crossfire. Selling at the bottom. Panicking. Watching years of savings evaporate overnight. Unless they wake up now. Because Buffett's warning, bizarre as it sounds, is actually a gift. A rare moment where the world's most rational investor is saying something's wrong. You just have to listen. So what can you do? First, stop chasing hype. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Meme stocks? Crypto pumps? AI fads? Most of them will be ghost towns when the dust settles. Second, get liquid. Not just cash under the mattress, but assets you can move quickly. Stocks you understand. Gold. Short-term bonds. Assets that survive panic. Third, study the past. Every market crash has a pattern. Euphoria. Denial. Collapse. And then regret. Learn to recognize the signs, not from the news, but from behavior. When everyone's greedy, slow down. And finally, protect your mindset. Because the greatest asset you have in any crash isn't a stock or a bond or even cash. It's clarity. The ability to stay calm when the crowd goes mad. To think when others panic. To act when others freeze. That's what Buffett's warning is really about. Not just the market, but the mindset. Because bizarre or not, when a man who made $100 billion from patience, caution, and timing suddenly sounds the alarm, you'd better believe he sees something coming. And the question is, will you be ready? Because here's the truth, most people aren't ready. They're scrolling TikTok while their retirement burns in the background. They're buying Starbucks lattes on maxed out credit cards. They're refinancing homes with adjustable rate mortgages while the Fed whispers about keeping rates higher for longer. And the worst part? They think it's fine. They think the government will step in. They think the banks will never fail. They think someone, somewhere, is in control. But here's the cold, hard reality. The US government is now over $34 trillion in debt. That's more than $100,000 per citizen. And it's growing by the second. The Congressional Budget Office estimates the U.S. will pay over $1.6 trillion in interest alone this year, more than the entire defense budget. That's not sustainable. That's not even logical. And Buffett knows this. That's why he's not betting on Uncle Sam to bail out the next big collapse. He's betting on survival. He's betting that when the storm comes, only the prepared will make it out alive. It's not just cash he's holding. It's optionality. The power to say no. The power to wait. The power to pounce when others drown in fear. Because money in a crisis doesn't just survive. It multiplies. Look at what happened in March 2020. The market crashed 30% in weeks. Everyone ran for the exits. And Buffett? He stayed still. Then came the deals. The rescue packages. The discounted acquisitions. It's not just about timing the crash. It's about being ready when it hits. But you might be wondering what makes this warning bizarre. Because Warren Buffett never talks like this. He doesn't do panic. He doesn't do drama. And yet, for months now, he's been dropping breadcrumbs. In May 2024, he sold $8 billion worth of U.S. equities, including massive positions in Apple and Bank of America. In June, Berkshire exited multiple regional banks entirely, citing systemic uncertainty. In August, he publicly said the American economy is slowing down in ways that aren't visible yet. By October, his cash pile had ballooned to a record high. And the kicker? He declined to make major acquisitions even when offered sweetheart deals. Warren Buffett saying no to a good deal? That's not just rare. That's unheard of. So what's he seeing that we're not? Maybe it's the commercial real estate time bomb. Offices across America are empty. Remote work killed demand, but debt didn't disappear. Over $1.5 trillion in commercial real estate loans are due by 2026. And banks are exposed, especially the small ones. Maybe it's the consumer credit explosion. With BNPL, buy now pay later, schemes turning everyday Americans into ticking time bombs of debt, the defaults haven't even started yet. Or maybe it's China. The world's second largest economy is teetering. Their property market is collapsing. Youth unemployment is soaring. And their central bank is quietly selling U.S. treasuries. One wrong move. One Lehman-style domino. That's all it takes. So what do you do if you're not a billionaire with a war chest? You simplify. You cut unnecessary risk. You don't YOLO into high-leverage trades because everyone else is doing it. You build a 6-month cash reserve like your life depends on it because it might. You buy quality assets, not hype. You prioritize income, not speculation. Because when the crash comes, only two groups make it out. 1. The ultra-rich who were already prepared. 2. The everyday people who woke up just in time. And let's be brutally honest, the ultra-rich aren't sending you warning letters. But Buffett just did. He just gave you the cheat code without spelling it out. The warning isn't bizarre because it came out of nowhere. It's bizarre because no one's taking it seriously. The media barely covered it. Analysts brushed it off. TikTok kept dancing. And that's exactly how every great crash begins, with the crowd mocking the silence before the storm. You don't want to be holding the bag when the music stops. Because here's how it plays out. First, the cracks show. Then, the fear spreads. Next, the selling starts. And finally, the capitulation. It's not if, it's when. Buffett isn't saying the crash will happen tomorrow. He's saying we've left reality. That valuations no longer make sense. That the debt spiral is unsustainable. That the average American can't survive another rate hike. He's saying something's gotta give. And when it does, you'll either be the one who listened early or the one who said, damn, I wish I'd paid attention. Because 2025 isn't just another year. It's an inflection point. AI is replacing jobs. Global wars are reshaping alliances. Central banks are out of ammo. And millions of Americans are balancing on a knife's edge between middle class and financial ruin. You don't need a PhD in economics to see what's coming. You just need common sense. And maybe a little inspiration from the guy who's quietly made $100 billion by mastering one thing, timing. So ask yourself right now, what am I doing to protect my future? Am I chasing hype or building stability? Am I following the crowd or thinking for myself? Am I prepared to move when opportunity appears, or will I be stuck watching from the sidelines again? Because Warren Buffett doesn't issue warnings often. But when he does, the smart money listens. So maybe it's time you start listening too. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. Before the bizarre becomes the obvious. Before the it could happen becomes it's happening. Before your 401k becomes a 201k. This isn't fear-mongering. This is a reality check. You don't need to panic. You just need to prepare. And when you do, you won't fear the crash. You'll be ready for it. Maybe even profit from it. Just like Warren.